Mobster and hitman Jimmy Conlon has one night to figure out where his loyalties lie between his estranged son and his longtime friend who is a mob boss. This is my review of Run All Night. So I'm still catching up with my 2015 reviews, and Run All Night is next up on my list. And after seeing Run All Night back in March, I still believe that Run All Night is a good movie. The good points. I believe that the acting was the best thing about this movie, and there were three actors that stood out throughout the movie, and those would be Liam Neeson, Joel Kinnaman, and Ed Harris. And for me, it's hard to say which one was the best, because the chemistry between Liam Neeson's character and Joel Kinnaman's character was good, but at the same time, the same thing can be said about Liam Neeson's character and Ed Harris's character. I thought their chemistry was good too. But nonetheless, I thought that all three of them were good for what they did in the movie with their acting. Now, as for the writing, I think the smartest thing that the writing did for this movie was the telling of the relationship between the father and the son, played by Liam Neeson and Joel Kinnaman. And the reason I say that their relationship was written in a smart way is because of its realism. At the beginning of the movie, Joel Kinnaman's character basically disowns Liam Neeson's character, who's the father. And once you hear the backstory between the two characters, it's like, yeah, I get why Joel Kinnaman's character disowns Liam Neeson's character. And by the end of the movie, you can tell that Joel Kinnaman's character, in a way, disowns his father still, but in a way is thankful towards him still. There were some other notable scenes that were written well, in my opinion. But other than the acting and the writing, the only other two things that I thought were good about this movie was most of the action and some of the editing. The main reason I thought the action was done well in this movie was mainly because of the directing and the actors themselves. And not only because of those two things, but because of the editing as well. Which, as I said a second ago, was another good thing about this movie. I thought the movie was paced well, I thought the scenes were paced well. And overall, I thought the movie was short and sweet. Which is not a bad thing at all, because this movie needed to be short and sweet for what it had to offer. And I think if it went longer, then it would have been a little bit bloated. The bad points. So the first thing I don't like about this movie is the first scene of the movie. And this isn't spoiling anything because you see this in the first minute of the movie, but what happens is that you see Liam Neeson's character, he's injured, and you see Joel Kinnaman's character like hiding behind a tree as he's being shot upon. And then a minute later, it goes back into the past to retell the events that happened that led up into the first scene of the movie. And the reason I don't like that scene is because when they're retelling the events that led up into the first scene of the movie, like, you know, like nothing fatal, nothing bad is going to happen to Liam Neeson or Joel Kinnaman's characters, because you know that they're at least going to be alive when we get up to that point. And most of the time, I hate it when movies do that. I mean, sometimes they can do it in a smart way where I like it because maybe there's a twist later on, but there's no twist in this. It's like you know from that point that Liam Neeson's character and Joel Kinnaman's character are just going to be fine. They're going to be alive up to that point. So that bad point mainly had to do with the writing, I guess. And speaking of the writing, another thing about the writing that I didn't like was with Nick Nolte's character. One of the things that I didn't like about Nick Nolte's character in the movie was that he wasn't in it enough where it felt like he needed to be in there. Because in the movie, we just see him once and then, yeah, he's gone, like we don't see him again. But another thing that I didn't like about Nick Nolte's character is that he tells Joel Kinnaman's character something, and by the way, Joel Kinnaman's character, he's the nephew of Nick Nolte's character. Which means that Liam Neeson's character is the brother to Nick Nolte's character. But anyways, he tells Joel Kinnaman's character like about a story about Liam Neeson's character, about his father. And a minute after telling Joel Kinnaman's character this, he explains that he told him this because he was worried about him, because he didn't want Liam Neeson's character to kill him. And don't worry, I won't spoil what Nick Nolte's character said to Joel Kinnaman's character, but it was sort of like, well, don't you think that since like Joel Kinnaman and Liam Neeson told you that like they've been running from the mob all night, like wouldn't that like sort of tell you like, yeah, they're both fine? Like I don't know, because what would be the point of running with your son all night from like away from the mob, like if you want to protect him? I mean, what indicates to you that he wants to kill him if he's trying to protect him? But anyways, what Nick Nolte's character says like causes conflict, and I didn't really think it was conflict that needed to be had in the first place. And again, maybe he was worried about his nephew, but at the same time, it's like, well, like the father is helping his son, like trying to get away from the mob, so he's not really like trying to kill him, he's trying to help him. I really don't only thing that I didn't like about this movie was the mix between the directing and editing at some moments. Because at times there would be these scene transitions that would, like, you know how, like, sometimes in movies, when they're transitioning from one place to another, like, they ascend into the sky and then they go to this other area, like close or on the other side of the world, and then they descend on that area and then we see, like, where the characters are walking or where they're going. Yeah, they did that at some moments, and for this movie, it just didn't feel right. I think a regular transition could have worked, and I really don't know what the point of, like, having the camera, like, ascend into the sky, and then go into this other area and descending is. I mean, yeah, it's showing you, like, the next area where the characters are going, or where, like, we see these other characters. But at the same time, for me anyway, it's taking me out of the movie, sort of. But hey, that's just a small thing about this movie that I didn't like. So like I said, I saw this movie with my dad. My dad gives this movie a 3 out of 4 stars. And that is the same rating that I'll give it, a 3 out of 4 stars. If you're into Liam Neeson action movies, or action movies in general, I think you'll like this movie. As for being a fan of mob movies, you may like it, like, for it being a mob movie, like, it, because it's a mob action movie, I would call it. And off the top of my head, I don't think there's a lot of mob action movies in general. So yeah, if you're a fan of Liam Neeson movies, of action movies, and possibly mob movies, then I think you'll love this movie. Well, not love it, I guess enjoy it would be the right word. So that was my review of Run All Night. Hope you guys liked it, and other than that, guys, that's it.